Welcome to Weekend Ag Matters from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. Join us for an in-depth look at Iowa agriculture. Here's your host, Riley Smith.
Well, the weather has warmed up considerably this week, and that means planting season will be here before we know it. Welcome into this week's edition of Weekend Ag Matters. I'm Riley Smith. Russ Parker, Dustin Hoffmann, and Mark Magnuson will join us later on in the show. As for right now, let's start with a quick look at the news headlines. Earlier this week, Iowa Secretary of Agriculture Mike Naig presented Tyson Miller and Adam Milliken with Eldon C. Stutzman Incorporated and the entire team at Premier Crop Systems with the Secretary's Ag Leader Award for Conservation. The awards recognize leaders who are helping accelerate conservation across Iowa through innovation, collaboration, and on-the-ground efforts that support farmers while protecting soil and water resources. The award presentation was made as part of the annual Iowa Agribusiness Showcase and Conference in Altoona. Secretary Naig selected the awardees this year because of their work and action supporting the Iowa Nitrogen Initiative at Iowa State University. The INI is a public-private partnership built around farmer-led, on-farm research that generates real-world data to improve nitrogen use efficiency. That research has led to the development of NFACT, a nitrogen recommendation tool that uses Iowa-specific field trial data to deliver more precise nitrogen rate guidance. Research shows farmers can save as much as $34 per acre using NFACT recommendations instead of legacy maximum return to nitrogen rates, while maintaining productivity and protecting water quality. Secretary Naig encourages farmers and agronomists to use NFACT as they plan for the 2026 growing season. In other news, the U.S. Department of Agriculture is encouraging dairy producers to enroll in Dairy Margin Coverage, or DMC, an important safety net program that helps offset milk and feed price differences. This year's DMC sign-up began January 12th, and the deadline to enroll is February 26th. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act, signed by President Donald J. Trump on July 4th of last year, reauthorized DMC for calendar years 2026 through 2031 and provided substantial program improvements, including establishing new production history and increasing Tier 1 coverage. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act increased DMC's Tier 1 coverage level from 5 million pounds to 6 million pounds. All dairy operations that elect to enroll in DMC for 2026 will establish a new production history. For more information on DMC, visit the DMC webpage or contact your local USDA service center. And that's all the time we have for news headlines this week. Find all of our daily ag news content online at iowaagnet.com. We'll kick it over to Russ Parker with his faith-based food for thought here on Weekend Ag Matters.
When I was a middle schooler, one of my favorite things to do was ice skate. I always wore figure skates, but that didn't stop me from playing hockey with a bunch of local kids down at the rink. And I remember two guys in particular, Bill and Dan. They were good skaters, and sometimes the competition got pretty aggressive. One day, a hockey puck, delivered by a slap shot, caught me squarely in the forehead right above my nose, and pretty much ended any thoughts of career advancement. But my appreciation for ice skating has never gone away. These are the days of the Winter Olympics, and I remember watching figure skating on network TV, Dick Button and Peggy Fleming calling the championships. And of course, that old ABC Wide World of Sports intro, the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. And anytime I see a ski jump during the Olympics, I think of that famous clip. And I also love all the TV commercials with the little kids pretending they're Olympian athletes. But the truth is, very few of us are cut out to be Olympians. I could dream about landing a triple axel, but you'd never find me standing at the top of a ski jump. I'd be frozen in fear long before the downhill run. Forget about the 90 miles an hour. The Apostle Paul in one of his letters wrote, "I have fought the good fight and I have finished the race." Now, I can't quite picture Paul lacing up a pair of figure skates or tightening the ski bindings at the top of a mountain. I know that sounds a little facetious, but Paul wasn't talking about the Olympic competition. He was talking about the game of life. And that's the point. This race isn't reserved for a small elite group. It's one that we are all uniquely created to run. And just like in sports, life includes both the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. As followers of Christ, we are not called to sit in the stands. We're called to participate, fully, all in. Will we achieve perfection? No. Will we stumble or fall? Almost certainly. But can we persevere? Can we stay focused? Can we give our all in all? Paul believed we could, and in Philippians he encourages us with these words, I press on towards the goal to win the prize, for which God has called me heavenward in Christ Jesus. So, while most of us will never stand on an Olympic podium, every one of us is still in the race. The ice might be rough, the slope might be steep, and sometimes the finish line hard to see. But we weren't called to watch from the stands. We were called to step onto the ice, get to the top of the mountain, keep moving forward, one faithful push at a time. Food for thought, I hope. This is Russ Parker. Have a blessed day.
Thanks, Russ, and that's it for segment 1 on this week's episode. Once again, you can find all of our daily ag news content online at iowaagnet.com. Dustin Hoffmann will continue the show right after this short break. You're listening to Weekend Ag Matters on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. In rural Iowa, we know you're sold on your local radio station. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network partners with local Iowa stations to deliver the latest in agriculture news, including grain elevator prices, market reports, and ag policy news. Trusted local voices, trusted ag content. This message is brought to you by your friends at the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, where Iowa Ag matters.
Welcome back to Weekend Ag Matters. Here's your host, Dustin Hoffmann.
Welcome back to Weekend Ag Matters on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Dustin Hoffmann. Earlier this week, the Agribusiness Association of Iowa held their annual showcase event, and where we got to hear agribusinesses and some farmers talk about some of the things they're facing. And of course, it gave policymakers and others a chance to hear from the businesses and some of the things they're concerned about. The Iowa Department of Agriculture and Land Stewardship sent one of their own, Dr. Gretchen Paluch, there to the meetings to address those in attendance about things that have to do with pesticides, especially with the possibility of dicamba opening back up for use. Dr. Paluch visited with Russ Parker and gave us an update about what's going on at the Iowa Department of Ag.
I'm with Dr. Gretchen Paluch. She is the bureau chief here for the pesticide side of IDALS. So let's talk a little bit about your background. We have some common roots. Let's talk a little bit about your experience from the education side of the equation.
Sure. So this is where I went to school and yep. Well, I am an Iowa State University graduate. So I did go there for my bachelor's, got a master's and PhD there in entomology and toxicology. Great school. And I graduated in the 2000s. And after that, largely I've been working for the state.
So we were in a meeting earlier here where, of course, the news is out on the dicamba and the new federal label. Let's talk a little bit about that and what that means for an Iowa producer.
Sure. Well, at this point in time, we're still waiting for some of that new label to work its way through the process. But I think hearing that EPA did finalize a registration decision is news for those producers. So I think we're going to have a lot of questions coming in, and there's going to be an effort to look at doing work on the state end as far as receiving an application to register products that have that use, moving it through so that there are registered products in the state, so they can be sold and distributed, and they're available for use this crop season. I think the big emphasis is folks are going to be looking for having that tool in the toolbox.
Okay. And one of the other things that you mentioned and talking about tools in the toolbox are some of the things that are available to a producer through the IDALS website, and specifically the bulletins that are available. Could you talk a little bit about that and the importance of especially applicators going to that website?
So what we really want, so IDALS does have a great website where we have a lot of information. We're really set up to help support the thousands of applicators that are certified in Iowa, keep them up to date on training. We work with Iowa State University Extension, and they're kind of a partner in this. They have a lot of education and outreach materials. So Iowa State University really has a great website that walks through Endangered Species Act and has information on these bulletins. So you hear people talking about that buzzword, the EPA bulletin. So that's Bulletins Live 2. And what we're trying to do is get applicators to visit that website. We want to make sure that they know how to use it, know where to go to access it, and are able to get the information about pesticide use that might be in specific areas in Iowa. And some of those new labels do have bulletins. So it's really, really important to go to the EPA Bulletins Live 2 website at least 6 months prior to making an application with some of those products.
And just looking at that map that was up on the in the conference room there, these bulletins point out some very local, give some very local information.
Absolutely. And if you're familiar with some of the bulletins that were previously on EPA's website, with this new registration, it's really changed. You'll see that we're not just looking at county-wide blocks anymore. Folks that we're looking at that website might have noticed that a lot of these were county-specific bulletins. When you go and visit the site now, and you'll want to enter in your specific location, so it's really key. Don't just put in Iowa. You want to zoom in. You want to get specific to the field of application, and then enter in the pesticide registration number of the product you're using. You're going to find these are very geographic specific. We're not just looking at those big blocks anymore. So there is a change from what we saw with previous dicamba over-the-top registrations.
So maybe a maybe a little different question, and you can answer this or not. But what do you think are some of the biggest challenges from a pesticide perspective going forward for Iowa producers and Iowa applicators?
So what I think really came out of the meeting today and the discussion, I do think are really good points. And there was a lot of talk about reducing drift, trying to keep that pesticide on the field of application. So you want to follow those label directions to keep it on the field. So minimizing drift is absolutely essential, and that's something that really came out today. In addition to that, the other main area is reducing runoff or soil erosion. That's another area that, well, really both minimizing drift and runoff, soil erosion. Those are areas that we've been working on for quite some time. And those are the big challenges, I think.
You also made some comments about the Endangered Species Act and how you've kind of researched that over time. And I thought your comments were really interesting. Maybe if at this, risk of repeating yourself, but tell us a little bit about, what these points of discovery really are.
So it's interesting if an EPA is the one to look at, because they've really been the ones that have been doing a lot of work looking at how to implement Endangered Species Act as part of their agency actions, and also what to do programmatically. And it's trickled down to the states. And this is something that's been worked on. I've probably been involved in it for a couple years now, working with different groups, emphasizing, some of those the effort to reduce the amount of pesticide exposure to vulnerable species, their food sources, their critical habitat. That's the effort. And what's been going on is EPA has put forth a number of different strategies. You can, on their website, see that they're grouped by different classification of pesticides, herbicides, insecticides, and such. And they are pretty comprehensive strategies. So there's been a lot of work that's been going on over the years. And so we've been following that. And what it means, well, that's when you look at the pesticide label. So what is the end result of those strategies, and what is EPA doing with those? They are putting them onto pesticide labels, and so that's what we have. That's kind of one of the updates. An example came out last Friday of implementing that herbicide strategy. And so we're looking at those and going back around, it comes back to reducing drift and minimizing runoff and soil erosion. That's kind of where a lot of those efforts are being focused.
And this is all data-based. I mean, this is not willy-nilly grab it out of the air. This is lots and lots of research.
So EPA is where a lot of that's happening, and they're the ones coming up with those strategies. And yes, they do have a number of folks working in their program offices looking to address those types of questions. So they are, yes, there's a science-based process there.
So am I missing anything? Anything else that you want to add, or?
Well, I would just add kind of as a final note is, and this also came out, I think, at the end of the discussion today, is that, yes, there are these new areas on pesticide labels, but now's the time to make sure you're reading through them. They're talking about a couple new things. Make sure you're familiar and comfortable with that Bulletins Live 2 website. You also want to be familiar with EPA's mitigation menu. So there are points that you're looking to reach in order to reduce drift, minimize runoff and soil erosion. Those are new things that you want to make sure you're familiar with. But as you go through that, don't forget that, at least for the applicators in Iowa, these are areas we are familiar with. We've been doing practices. There's a lot of best management practices in place. We still want to reduce these things. So that is still the same emphasis. So I've been through a couple of years where it feels a little overwhelming, but again, go back to those best management practices, things that have already been here the whole time.
Thanks so much, Russ. That again was Dr. Gretchen Paluch of the Iowa Department of Agriculture and Land Stewardship. That's going to do it here for segment 2. Mark Magnuson will be in next to wrap up the show.
Hi, my name is Ethan Smith, and I've been a certified crop advisor in Iowa for about 6 years. The Iowa CCA program is valuable to me because it helps keep me informed on new topics and research around the industry, including soils, insects, diseases, and much more. It's also a great way to network with others around the state and beyond. Iowa is known for its crops, and that's why we're here. To learn more about becoming a certified crop advisor, visit iowacca.org.
Welcome back to Weekend Ag Matters. Here is Mark Magnuson.
Mark Magnuson for the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, and I'm joined today by Daren Coppock. He is the president and CEO of the Ag Retailers Association. And Daren here today at the Agribusiness Association of Iowa Showcase. Daren, first of all, could you tell us, please, why it was important for you to be here today and getting the message out to all of Iowa's farmers?
Well, I love being out with the membership. I was raised on a farm, and so these are my people. But it's great to have an invitation from the Iowa folks to come out and share some thoughts with them. More importantly, to hear what's on their minds, because that really helps us do the job that we do in Washington.
So talking about that, hearing what's on their minds, what do you think right now is the biggest challenge for ag when you're talking with producers and they're bringing you their thoughts?
So as I hear from our members, one of the things that's perennially on top of their minds is labor. They can't ever find enough of it that's qualified and able to work, especially in some of these more rural, remote communities. But this year, it's farm gate economics. People are concerned about what's the financial health of that grower, how much can I offer in terms of trade credit to help them finance the purchases that they're making. And, the retailer depends totally on the farmer. If the farmer's not doing well, the retailer doesn't do well either.
So, Daren, you started talking about labor, and that situation we know takes time through legislation and trying to get everybody to understand the importance of where we are with needing that labor right now and needing those workers in these remote areas. Do you think we're making progress right now, or is it just that we have to continue with that slow, steady drip because it does take time?
It's a little of both. I think we're going to see some relief from multiple areas. One of those is that as equipment gets bigger and we automate more things, it takes fewer people to do the jobs that it used to take more to do. I think we'll see more of that, some of it from AI, but some of it just from automation that we're already on course to do. Otherwise, we're trying to help out with a program that we launched a year ago in January that we call Labor Link. And it helps our members that are trying to find H-2A seasonal labor to be able to access it with fewer administrative headaches than are normally associated with that program.
And then you also talked about just farm finances in general and the overall farm picture. Of course, right now with with prices for commodities being depressed right now, it's creating a lot of issues for farmers. But we know that that's something that comes and goes in cycles. So what is the main message right now to farmers who are going through tough economic times to try and find a way back towards profitability?
Farmers are going to need some expert help to identify what kinds of products that they want to be able to use on their farm. Everything from seed genetics all the way up to pesticides or biological products or whatever else. And they don't have time to sort through all of the thousands of products that might be out there, especially in the biological space. And so I think the retailer's expertise is going to be really important to help them squeeze every bit of productivity they can out of the inputs that they do buy.
And with farmers, we know that they use their retail partners oftentimes almost hand in glove, working together because they get so much advice, so much benefit from those relationships. And for you in your position, then, what is it like making sure that those relationships between farmers and retailers are on the same page and everybody's pulling in the same direction?
I view them as strategic partnerships. These aren't just transactional relationships. They're things that have lasted for years, if not generations, where retailers and the farm family work together on things of mutual interest. And so it's important to maintain and strengthen those. And as we look at some things like in the regenerative agriculture space is one example, we're working with Nature Conservancy on how do we get practices that are regen on more acres, things like cover crops. And they really view the ag retailer and the retail agronomist as the pathway to get to the grower because it's a trusted relationship that already exists.
It's a trusted relationship, and it's obvious that the retailer wants the farmer to continue to come to them for business, and so they're also going to try and provide that advice and that help along the way, I would imagine. Daren, where are some opportunities then right now? We talked about some of the storm clouds over the ag world right now, but where are the opportunities in the ag business world when it comes to the retail side that can really help farmers pull this rope all in the same direction?
So I think it's still fundamentally the same as it was in terms of the retailer finding technologies and practices that are going to help that grower become more efficient and more productive. I mentioned biologicals. That's such a huge new area. And in areas like California, where conventional chemistries are under even more pressure than they are in places like Iowa, biologicals have already come onto the market and replaced some of that. Now, one of the things one of our members told me about that is, I used to spray one product and get maybe 88% control. Now I'm spraying 3 or 4 products and getting 70% control. So it's not perfect. And if you added up all the claims that people make about those products, we ought to be able to grow 800 bushel corn, which isn't going to happen anytime soon. So there's a lot of chaff to be sorted through. But I think that's the crux of it is the retailer is going to be able to help the farmer do that.
And with that entire management strategy for farmers right now, when it comes to tight margins, it all comes back to efficiency and maximizing the use of everything, doesn't it? Making sure that you're just getting that best return on investment.
Absolutely. Not just from an economic standpoint, that's certainly true. You don't want to waste money at having inputs, run off the field or things like that. But environmentally, you want to use your land, your equipment, your labor to the best use that you can and be a responsible environmental steward. I don't know a single farmer, and I come from a farm family, who doesn't want to pass the land on to their next generation in better condition than what they received it.
And Daren, you were on the main stage here today at the AAI Showcase. Could you tell our Iowa viewers and listeners what you were on stage talking about today? What was your message?
So I was up there with my colleague and good friend, Corey Rosenbusch from the Fertilizer Institute, and we work together on lots of things. We even share office space with them and Crop Life America. So we were just answering some questions that Julie Kinney proposed to us from AI. But I think the most important thing that I would ask people to carry away is in the area of complying with the Endangered Species Act on pesticide applications. And specifically, if you're using a product that has those restrictions on it, check the Bulletins Live 2 website now. download what those restrictions are, because you've got a 6-month window then to operate in, that even if those rules change on the website, as long as you've got the document in your hand within 6 months of application, you're going to be okay.
So is that important to act on that right now?
I would. I mean, once you get in the spring season, you're not going to have time to do it. So I think I'd be doing it in the next month or so.
Daren, is there anything else you'd like to let our Iowa viewers, our Iowa listeners know about when it comes to anything you're working on with ARA right now, or just the state of the farm world, or any message you'd like to pass along?
Well, we continue to work on things legislatively in Washington. We're working on a seasonal ag CDL bill right now. Johnny Ernst, Senator Ernst, has been very helpful with that from an Iowa perspective. And so there will be opportunities like that as they come along. We have a fly-in where our members come to Washington in early March, March 2, 3, 4, and we'll spend a full day up on Capitol Hill with our team making the appointments. And it's not just a little thing. We've got about 100 people involved in it, and we'll do 130, maybe even 140 congressional visits in one day with ag retail. So they'll know we're in town by the time it's over.
He is Daren Coppock with the Ag Retailers Association. Daren, thanks so much for the time here today. Really appreciate it, and have a great rest of your visit here in the state of Iowa.
Thank you very much.
Thank you to Daren Coppock, the president and CEO of the Ag Retailers Association, as that is going to bring us to the end of today's episode. You can find this episode and all of our past episodes of Weekend Ag Matters under the podcast tab of our website at iowaagnet.com. For Russ Parker, Dustin Hoffmann, and Riley Smith, I'm Mark Magnuson. You've been listening to Weekend Ag Matters on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, where Iowa Ag matters.